Alright, so we are beginning photosynthesis and cellular respiration. We're going to focus on photosynthesis first, and this is in Chapter 8. I would recommend that you use SQ5R for this next unit because this is probably one of the most difficult units that we study in biology. And so during this time, during this lesson, this video, I would like you to write down one question of clarification or something that that kind of came up in your head to spark your interest, a question you want to ask me in class, and then come up with one fact from this from this video that you found interesting, and bring that to class tomorrow. Okay, so let's just start with energy, because really photosynthesis and cell respiration is dealing with energy and how we can make energy and store energy. And really energy is the ability to do work. So without the ability to obtain and use any sort of energy, life could not exist. We cannot walk down the stairs. I cannot sit in this desk. You cannot hear me watch the video without energy. And we have our energy that comes in the form of what is known as ATP. And it's one of the most important compounds that our cells use to store and release energy. And we can pronounce it as adenosine triphosphate. And so there's the pronunciation. You might want to practice that. So it's adenosine triphosphate. It's weird in those words, but that's how you do it. And it looks like this. We have a molecule of adenine, which is where we get this first portion of the word right here. There is a ribose, 5-carbon sugar attached, and then 3 phosphate groups. And those phosphates are going to be really important when we are storing or utilizing our energy. And so we also have something called adenosine diphosphate, and it almost looks like ATP, adenosine triphosphate, but the di is coming from the fact that there's only 2 molecules of phosphate attached to the ribose. So if you see here, there's only 2, and this one's about to be added on, but right here we have 3 of them. 3 phosphates attached to our ribose. And that ADP does have some energy, but it's not as much as ATP. And we can refer to our ADP and ATP as a rechargeable battery. And so if you look here, we've got a dim light, and that's where that battery has lost some of its energy, and that's where we have lost a phosphate on our ribose. But when that phosphate is added back, it's like a full charged battery that allows for that light from the flashlight to shine as bright as possible. And remember, if you break a bond, you release energy. So in this case, we can release energy from this ATP if we break a bond off of it. So that's what ADP represents. It represents something that has lost a bit of energy. It still has some, but in order to have that full charge battery, we want to obtain an extra phosphate that may be in the vicinity. In looking at biochemical energy, one way that cells use energy that's provided by ATP is to carry out active transport, and this is something that we've recently studied within the cell membrane. And so our example, and we'll watch that video in class. You're more than welcome to take that URL and type it in to your own internet and watch it now. But the example of that is our sodium-potassium pump. And so in order to go against the concentration gradient from a low concentration to a high concentration of our solutes, our sodium or potassium, we have to expend some energy, and that's in the form of ATP. And secondly, we do see ATP that powers the movement of cilia and flagella. So anytime we want this bacteria wants to move, it's going to utilize ATP. Another type of biochemical energy is that which we see from the synthesis, which is the production. To synthesize something just means to make, right? The making of proteins and any sort of response to chemical signals that are at the cell surface. Those are going to utilize our energy from ATP. Now, how can we, or animals, obtain this energy? We can get our energy from food because it is stored within the food. So two types of animals that we should discuss at this point are heterotrophs and autotrophs. A heterotroph is something that can get food by eating other living things. And so this is definitely humans, right? Humans, rabbits, cows, horses, those sorts of things. We can get energy from eating the plant directly. That could be us, but it also, for example, will be a cow. And eating plants indirectly by feeding on plant-eating animals. And this would be an example of us, because we may eat a cow which has eaten a plant, and so that energy is getting passed along toward us, but it's indirectly from the plant. And then something that makes its own food is going to be an autotroph, and that's going to lead us into the discussion of plants and photosynthesis. So looking at autotrophs, our plants are a prime example of that, and the plants are going to convert the energy of sunlight right here, oops, right, into a chemical energy that can be stored within our carbohydrates of this particular animal. So we're taking sun energy, the plant is going to change it into chemical energy, and then that energy can be stored within the animal, and it can be released when something eats this particular animal. And so I would probably recommend that you draw this picture, understand that we're going from solar to chemical energy that is going to be stored within an animal. And then just to give you a very brief introduction to photosynthesis, and I know that you have knowledge of this, it is the process that by which autotrophs are going to take the energy from sun, produce it into something that is high energy carbs that can be used for food, and that energy can be released later when something eats that animal. And so we're going to stop right there. Make sure that you get notes. I would recommend getting that picture, and then bring your questions and your comments to class, and we will further discuss from here.